Hi, folks. Welcome back to another episode of Finding Data Friends. Ben, the stretching's over. We've started the pod. Okay, great.
I did not notice. Thank you. I'm
Okay,
here.
no
I'm
worries.
here.
I don't think anyone will notice. We're fine. We'll carry on.
Perfect.
Anyway, good news. We've got a new data friend joining us on the pod. Allan, thanks for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell people who you are?
Sure. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Allan Hirt. I've been working with SQL Server probably longer than some of you have been born. Ben and I might have a similar history, but I started working with SQL Server
Did you
when it's
just
still a
call me
Sybase
old?
product. Well, I'm probably older than you. I started working with a Sybase product. I actually interned at Sybase in college, and then that started me down the whole database path. And sort of have been kind of hooked ever since. Although I took a different track than most people. I sort of stayed on the infrastructure and sort of deployment. And, I come from a QA background. It was like one of my first jobs out of college. So I'm more on that end of things. I've never been more of a query guy or straight ahead performance tuning guy of T-SQL. But so that thing that I'm most known for probably is high availability or business continuity, which has high availability and disaster recovery. I fell into that. I started using the Wolfpack in the late 90s, which was the beta version of clustering in Windows. So I've seen clustering since its inception. And I worked for Microsoft for a while, did consulting both for companies and my own company for a long time. And just, I'd say, little about 14 months or so, give or take 15, I don't know, something like that. I decided I wanted a new challenge. I'm now currently working at Pure Storage as a technical evangelist.
Very cool. Nice. So with that journey through technology, I'm sure the first question that we always ask will be difficult to single out just one thing. But if you had to pick, what would your favorite data thing be?
Well, ironically, so I will try and stick with one, but I'll probably pick two. One isn't sort of a data
Most
thing. I
people
could
do.
say the infrastructure thing, but I don't want to give the obvious answer. But I'm keeping it limited.
Thank
So
you.
I would say in SQL Server, my favorite feature was introduced in SQL 2012, and that was the ability to run updates during install. So,
Okay.
it was when they added. So, for those of you that don't know the history a little bit, prior to SQL Server 2012, there was sort of a kludgy way in starting, I think, with SQL Server 2008 to sort of slipstream or includes an update within your installation. But you had to do it manually, as a real pain in the rump. Whereas in 2012, they added a couple of parameters into setup if you're using the ini files. And so there's update source, update enabled, which by default is set to true. But you can disable that, so you can just install whatever the ISO has. Or you can leave it at the default true or set it to true, and then do update source, but have like your update locally. So anytime you do a new install of SQL Server, you'd basically get at this point, a CU, I don't want to say service pack because we no longer have those, as part of your install, saving you a whole ton of time. And I still see people to this day, and I kind of chuckle sometimes, who want to do their basic install and then run a CU later. I'm like, why? Just do it all at the same time. So that actually is, I could have picked something like availability groups or, sentimentally favorite failover cluster instances, but,
All the
that's a little
obvious
too obvious.
BDC, but I hear you.
Do you need a drink? Do you need a moment, Ben, for BDC? Pour one out.
And it's so many moments. Funny enough, just this morning I fired up a machine that I haven't had on for quite a while and had it as a data studio on it, and it was a very old build of ADS that still has the BDC plugin in there by default. I got sentimental for an hour there. I was going to say a moment, but who are we kidding? It was longer than a moment. It was a very long moment.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the longer I've been in IT, the more you see things are cyclical. Like I remember when I was at Microsoft, I first really saw some of the virtualization stuff. did some of the internal demos on VMware Workstation. At that time, Microsoft was using that for demos for an internal group called Demos R Us. And so I did like the failover clustering instance demos, that would run on laptops. And, so it's really fun to see how far we've come, and at the same time, how far we haven't come. Because we're all still solving the same problems. I'm still solving all the same availability issues that I did 20 years ago, just with different technology. And I would argue it's somewhat more complex now. But if I had to pick a non-data favorite feature in a technology, it would probably be a Windows Server failover cluster. Just being honest, it's sort of in my DNA at this point.
I think that still counts. It's still in the data sphere, right? Like we use failover clusters for high availability with data, so it still counts.
Yeah, data I know adjacent. They frustrate a lot of people, but I think if people today would try and use them the way they were originally around in like NT4 and Windows 2000, they would tear their hair out. They'd be like, "What the heck is this?" It's so much better now. Ben's looking at me like, no, there's nothing good about this.
no. Well, to be fair, you didn't say it's good now. You say it's so much better, and I totally agree on that part. So,
but what feature or technology is perfect, right? I don't think there is anything. There's always going to be something that you'd wish was a little different, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we've gotten to a point with most things we do in whatever sphere we are in IT, where things are mostly good enough. Might still be annoying in some cases, might still be weird, but it might not make sense conceptually, but it works.
True. Also, can we give kudos to Allan to giving an actual very specific answer to the question about his favorite data feature, rather than just being Agreed. Like data updates in the I think that was like the most specific
I think so too.
Favorite feature or thingy that we've ever had on this show. So
okay.
Good job on that. Thank you.
Agreed.
I tried to watch some of the other shows, and I didn't want to do infrastructure, and then start to talk about storage and networking and Active Directory and servers and putting solutions together. Because I do love doing that stuff, but that's not a feature.
True. It's true.
Just saying.
True.
Now, you were talking about Windows high availability and all that, where we could argue, is it a favorite non-data thingy or not? But we've kind of agreed that we're going to let it count as a data thingy. So our next question for that would be, what is your favorite non-data? I'm not going to say feature, but a thingy, because it can be a hobby. It can be anything.
Again, this one's a hard one for me because there's so many things I do like to do outside of the work stuff. But if I had to pick one, it would probably music and all things related to it. I mean, I've always been into music. I've been playing bass since third grade. So for those of you not in the U.S., third grade is when you're roughly about 9, 10, 11 years old-ish in the States. So I've been playing bass for a really long time. But it also goes along with some of the other stuff I do. I see a ton of concerts. I've traveled around the world to see concerts. When I've been away for work on business trips, I'll go to music shops and look for CDs and stuff like that. So music is sort of all pervasive in many aspects of my life. I'm actually in the middle of recording my latest album, which should hopefully be out second half of this year. The last one came out a couple years ago. It's on Bandcamp and all the favorites. If you stream, it's on all the streaming platforms. So yeah.
But you should totally buy it on Bandcamp. Just
get it in the show notes.
That will depend, because our guests write our show notes. So if Allan puts it there, people will find it there.
I'll make sure you have the Bandcamp link.
Perfect. Just put it down here.
Yes. Yeah. So I mainly play jazz, although I like rock and other stuff. What I play is jazz, and I'll do interpretations of tunes as jazz versions. Like on the new album, you see sort of back there, that is an actual Roboto mask from from the band Styx that they used. It's one of two that actually lit up, no longer lights up. Dennis DeYoung has the other one. So like on the new album, I actually have a version of a swing version of Mr. Roboto. So
nice.
Very cool.
I really did like the last album. I have to, and I'm not just saying that because
thank you.
Because
I appreciate that.
Because I purchased that album way before we recorded that show. But after that, spoiler alert, I'm very much looking forward to the next album. Actually,
yeah, I'm really happy with this one. I'm pretty much done almost all the principal tracking. I have like another couple little things to touch up, and then we go into mix in about a month or two. So when we're recording this, probably the show will premiere just about when I'm going to go in and mix. And then, like I said, there's a whole bunch of things. So people think IT is complex. You know, if you really want to do things legally and use a song like Mr. Roboto, you have to legally license it. You have to account for, if you're doing any kind of physical media, how many copies you may sell. You've got to account for streaming. You have to potentially looking it up with video, which is a different right than audio. So like if you want to put it on YouTube and put a video or something behind it, or even just throw it up on YouTube, you need a license for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it gets very complex very quickly if you're going to be completely legal when you're doing these releases. And that's part of why sometimes it takes so long. Is like the last one, I had one artist or their estate, I'm not sure who basically gave me some guff around the sync rights for putting it up on YouTube. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm going to get like 50 people looking at this thing. Like, why are you like, so it's interesting. People think it's like, oh, I'll sit in my home studio and do this and I'll just throw it up on the internet. Now you can do that, but if you want to do it the right way and be legal, it's actually a lot more difficult than people think it is. So yeah.
It's a lot of work.
So a little bit like SQL Server licensing. It's all coming together, you know.
You know, I think it's the one thing I yell at the dev team at every year at MVP Summit about, is making licensing more clear. It's especially in the availability space, it can get really confusing really quick.
True.
And, you know, I always joke, you talk to 3 licensing people, you get 5 different stories. It could be because nobody understands it, you know, and even the stuff where it's clear in legalese, people interpret it differently. So yeah, licensing is really hard for SQL Server when you get into more complex scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's fixed rules. It's more like rough recommendations. That's at least what it usually feels like, given also what you've just confirmed.
But for me, ironically, FCIs, which would be simpler, are actually harder to understand in licensing than AGs. AGs are much more black and white. Your replica is either live or it's not. Mm-hmm. You know, and that's it for the most part, right? And then you get into your variations of, do I have software assurance or whatever? But FCIs, it's like, well, you're not really synchronizing anything. It's just there, and then it fails over. So what do you do if you've got stuff running on? And they don't clearly call that out, and that's always been an annoyance to me. But maybe someday they'll fix that.
We can hope, right?
So, folks, if you ever want to trigger Allan, just bring up license.
Actually, no, there are other things that would trigger me that we all know, but that would not be one of them. That's just annoying.
Hey, Jess, you know what we should do at some point?
What's that?
We should attend one of Allan's concert in like one of these small little clubs, and we sit there and we're going to have some snacks and enjoy that show, and you know.
I'm in. Oh, I see what you're doing there. You're creating a segue. I got this. I love snacks. Allan, what's your favorite food?
You know, I have to admit I'm not really a foodie. And so I live in Boston, in the northeast part of the U.S.
How can you live in Boston and not be a foodie? I mean,
I live just outside.
Seriously, what is wrong? Oh, that changes nothing.
Yeah, I live about 15 to 20 minutes outside the city. I'm to do everything I need to do in the area, I'm pretty centrally located. And but I grew up outside of Philadelphia, so south of Boston. But ironically, there's not a lot of stuff here that I love to eat. So part of it is that I keep kosher, So if we were getting snacks, I would either go to New York or Chicago. And in New York, it would probably eating at a restaurant called Le Marais, which is a sort of a French steakhouse that is, I think, fairly reasonably priced and has some of my favorite food in the world. Service isn't always the best; it varies, but you know, I can overlook that. And then the place in Chicago that I really love is a place called Milt's Barbecue for the Perplexed. Weird name for a restaurant, but
it's not super catchy, I have to say.
No, it's not. But like when I taught classes in Chicago, I had them sometimes cater like lunches, and even non-kosher people really like the food. It's just great food. And so yeah, anytime I'm in Chicago, it's definitely one of the places I visit. Like if I'm in London, there's a place called Metsuyan, which is like kosher Asian style stuff, and they actually have like lamb, like sizzling lamb, which I get, which is really good. But yeah, so I'm on the lookout for usually good kosher food that isn't lazy. So like that isn't like Middle Eastern, and sorry to those who like things like falafel and shawarma or like straight up deli, but like to me that's like lazy kosher food in a way. Like I like something that's a little better or interesting or different. It used to be a couple of like kosher Mexican places I liked in LA. There's actually another. So Chicago is like one of the best cities. There's a place actually just outside the city. I think it's in Skokie, called Tacos Gingy. That's really good tacos, and like they have a barbacoa sandwich that's amazing.
I'm getting really mixed messages here.
So good.
You know, I'm not a foodie, but here are like 15 restaurants in no specific order that do all. They do this and they do this sizzling lamb and stuff. And I don't like lazy food because I'm not a foodie. So I wanted to be like super fan. Hang on, what is happening here?
Well, I think what it is because everything's gotten so expensive. I mean, just being real, everything's gotten so expensive. If I'm going to go out and spend money on food like that I'm not making, it has to be good. Like, because it's so easy to blow money and you walk away, you're like, that was okay. Like, but if I, whether it's $10 or more than that, like we have friends that we might know in common who love to go out for a very nice, expensive steak meal or whatever. And like, that's not,
hey, Joey, hey, Anthony.
Exactly. Right. Or, you know, a few other people that I don't think we have been on the program yet, but, they love to go to like really expensive steakhouses and drink wine and all that. That's not really my thing. I prefer something a little more casual and just a little more down to earth and just good, solid food.
I would say, Allan, you did really well on being so specific on your favorite data thing. And then for your favorite food thing, we've got a list of 15 restaurants around the world to visit.
But you introed with like, I don't really care about food, but if you're ever in Chicago, go to that place or that or that.
Well, now I'm hungry for tacos and lamb
and make sure to get the number 74, but exchange the rice for this and that. So,
well, I think we all develop preferences over the years, right? Yeah. Like I sometimes like I just love a good sandwich, you know, like, and there's so many places that like I always joke like. So I used to travel a lot for work, and I always used to joke I was the king of the $50 grilled cheese, the room service grilled cheese. Because by the time you got like the salad, the grilled cheese, maybe you got some ice cream and like a drink with it, it was like $50 for 2 pieces of bread and some melted cheese. But yeah, it's always interesting.
But I love a good grilled cheese, I have to say that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say
good comfort food, not fancy or anything, but.
Little tomato soup to dip it in.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. So if you like grilled cheese, one of the best sort of combinations I've had is rye bread with Gruyere cheese and caramelized onions.
Nice.
And then tomato soup on the side, and maybe some fries or chips or something. Yeah, that's on like a fall day or a cold winter day. There's almost nothing better than that.
Now I want a grilled cheese. Yeah, good thing is, We're at the end of the episode, so I can now almost go make myself a grilled cheese, except that I'm at the office and I don't have bread or cheese or a stove or
Technicalities.
any details that I need to figure and work
We'll
out.
figure that out.
Yeah.
I will let you all know next week how that worked out for me. How about that?
Awesome.
Anyways, Allan, thank you very much for joining us. It was very nice to see you and learn more about your very specific favorite data thingy and not so very much specific places to eat all over the world. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And we see you all again next week. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers, folks.